Briefing for Council President Andrew Friedson. I'm Jordan Lindsay. Reporters, if you still need permission to record, please note that in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat as well. Now I'll toss it to Council President Friedson for opening remarks, and then we'll open it up for questions. Council President Friedson, to you.
Thank you, Jordan, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I hope everyone had an enjoyable and safe July 4th weekend and had some time to relax and rejuvenate and celebrate our country and our community. On the 4th, I had a great time, joined some of my team and family for a busy day attending celebrations with communities throughout my district and throughout Montgomery County, including Wingate, Cabot John, Somerset, Chevy Chase, Friendship Heights, and was able to march in a parade with a classic car at Wood Acres, and then also was able to join for the national fireworks in the nation's capital, which was a lot of fun. Want to take a moment to thank our first responders who not only ensured the safety and well-being of our community during the celebrations, but also demonstrating their unwavering commitment in the face of two significant emergencies on July 4th. One in Aspen Hill, where a house was severely damaged and the neighborhood was significantly threatened by fire sparked by fireworks, and the Montgomery County Women's Shelter, where a fire displaced 40 people. The Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security has been helping with the coordination of services for those impacted, and it's a coordinated response among county departments and agencies, and just want to express my deep appreciation for all of those efforts and our thoughts for the residents who are facing the significant disruption to their lives and their livelihoods. On behalf of the council as well, just want to reiterate our deep appreciation for the selflessness and sacrifice that really defines public safety and the service that so many of our public safety professionals provide on a daily basis. And I really do think that July 4th, these emergencies, but also the broader celebration of everything that we celebrate about our country and about our communities, there's so much of it that we owe to our first responders who put their lives on the risk every day. So thank you on behalf of the entire council, and thank you for myself personally for that service and for those efforts. Also wanted to highlight an important event that I participated in last week with Delegate Mark Corman, Delegate Jared Solomon, and County Executive Mark Elrich. We were able to join for a signing ceremony where both the county executive and I spoke in North Bethesda, celebrating an exciting new partnership between the Pike District and the Navy. The partnership was one of the latest initiatives that will help boost our local economy in North Bethesda and in Montgomery County more broadly. The goal is to go from the Toys R Us of my childhood to a tech hub in that area of the Pike District in North Bethesda, and really make sure that we have the high-tech boulevard that we have always envisioned for this critical part of Montgomery County that is the center of so many federal installations and so much innovation, research, and opportunity that we have to turn into jobs. I always talk about the R&D. We are world-class, the leader anywhere on the planet when it comes to the R, the research and R&D. We want to make sure that we are the leader anywhere on the planet on the D side, the development of jobs and opportunities that research can be turned in. And so this partnership is part of that, that will include Capital Tech Bridge Initiative, which aims to prepare students to work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center's Carter Rock Division, and help local businesses to foster innovation together with Capital Tech Bridge. North Bethesda is ideally located near transit, alongside many federal offices and installations, higher education institutions, world-class arts like Strathmore Music Center, and a conference center with the Bethesda North Marriott Hotel and Conference Center. North Bethesda is also an integral part of Montgomery County. It's centrally located, and so it's really exciting to see the growth and the intention that we have put into this area that is starting to really bear its fruit. By working with leaders in business and science and in the public and the private sectors, we're working on diversifying our economic base, giving us more security, strength, and funding so that we can improve the lives of our over 1 million residents, and also be the center of innovation and on world-changing and life-saving and life-improving technology that will be utilized throughout the country and around the world. Tomorrow, the council plans to vote on the confirmation of the executive's nominee for fire chief, Corey Smedley. He is a former top fire department official in both Prince George's County and the city of Alexandria, so certainly no stranger to our region and to the fire safety community across the national capital area. The council had a very robust conversation with him during his official interview on June 25th. During that conversation, Chief Smedley demonstrated his dedication to service, and we were able to talk about his vision for the future of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services, which is a world-class organization that is a combined organization between our career professional staff and our professional volunteer staff, all of whom are trained to save our residents from the challenges they face on a daily basis. So we look forward to that vote. He, as noted, has more than 33 years of public service experience across our region, and look forward to that vote tomorrow. Also today, just later this afternoon, I'll be chairing the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, and we will have our second work session at 1:30 on the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative, which was approved by the Planning Board and is based on their recommendations to address the land that we have in Montgomery County that's currently zoned for single family and to look at diversifying the housing options. They lay out a series of recommendations related to duplexes and triplexes and other options. And this is part of our effort to address housing challenges and the serious housing shortage that we face in Montgomery County, and an interest in having a greater diversity of housing types in closer proximity to transportation and especially transit options for our residents, so that we're creating more opportunity for people to live here, to afford to access the great amenities that we have in Montgomery County, and ensuring that we are building a more sustainable future for our residents. As chair of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, we're always looking for ways to grow housing options. And this is one way of many to address that. Today's session is the second session. We'll have a third session on July 22nd. And we're going to continue those conversations throughout July. We'll head into August recess, then we'll come back in September for more public engagement and resident input, and move towards actual legislation to address these issues. We're one of the most populous and fastest growing counties in the nation. We have more than 1 million residents today. The current expectations are that we are going to add another 200,000 more people over the next 25 years. And we need to figure out a way to house everybody who is expected to be part of our community. And it's important that we address housing as part of the infrastructure that we need to have the type of community that we want, part of the economic development and the environmental sustainability and the equity goals that we have. Housing is at the center of all of them, and we need to address the fact that up to this point, we have not built nearly enough units for the residents that we have and for the residents that we expect to move forward. Also, today in the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee is the last scheduled session of the Great Seneca Plan, Connecting Life and Science. The Planning, Housing, Parks Committee will be holding a work session this afternoon, and this is following the previous work sessions that we have had on this plan, the public hearing on the Planning Board draft last month that we had, and the significant public outreach and the council bus tour that we did so that we could see the issues addressed in the plan up close. The Great Seneca Plan covers 4,300 acres in the heart of the 270 corridor between Gaithersburg, Rockville, and the town of Washington Grove. And we look forward to building on the June 17th meeting where we looked at the introduction, the purpose, the area's history, demographic context, and the plan's framework, and looked at an overview of the life sciences real estate land use compatibility study, which is background and was used as part of the impetus for many of the recommendations. And then on meetings held on the 24th and 27th, last couple weeks, the committee reviewed the Life Sciences Center component of the plan. And today, we're going to review the plan's remaining districts as well as the fiscal impact statement for how much it will cost to implement the plan. So that's where we are currently, with a full schedule later today in committee and at the council session tomorrow. And with that, happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'll turn it back to you, Jordan, to facilitate.
Great. Thank you so much, Council President Friedson. Reporters, again, if you have any questions, note that in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you accordingly. I don't see any questions in the chat just yet. Kate Ryan with WTOP. Good morning, Kate.
Hey, good morning. Thank you very much. I had a question about the women's shelter and 40 people displaced, including employees, is my understanding. Where and how are they being housed? Does Montgomery County have spare, if you will, space? I know space is at a premium everywhere, right? But in situations like this, where are these people being housed? How are they being housed? And how long before they might get back to that location?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the last part and I'll go back to the beginning part. I will have to get back to you on the timing for a return to occupancy for that facility. So we'll get back to you on that, Kate. In terms of the process, without going into specifics of where any individuals are housed, when situations like this happen, whether it's a county facility like this or whether it's a private dwelling like a multifamily apartment building or condo building or a neighborhood of townhomes or single family homes, the Office of Emergency Management gets involved. They coordinate the response. This is a core part of what they do. We have county agencies like the Health and Human Services Department. We also coordinate with local nonprofits, including the American Red Cross oftentimes is involved. In this case, several of the rapid response housing organizations are likely engaged, and housing is found in alternative arrangements are identified on a case-by-case basis. So there's not a lot of extra space, so to speak, but it's worked out on a case-by-case basis. There are caseworkers that are involved. There is the coordinated response from Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. And there is significant partnership, particularly with the nonprofit community locally, all of whom are part of a coordinated effort to find resources that are needed and housing that is needed in a timely basis.
Thank you. And quick follow-up on different topic on the also addressing housing, the rezoning plan to allow duplexes, triplexes, et cetera. I think it was the Washington Post had an article this morning, if I'm correct, on Arlington is facing lawsuits over this. Do you expect, if this moves forward, that people might sue? And is there a better answer for those who are saying, look, this is not the way to do it? What are your thoughts?
Well, nothing isn't an option when it comes to the housing shortage that we face. We need to do something, and we're doing a lot. This is just one of many approaches that we are taking to address the severe housing shortage that we face. It is at a level that significantly inhibits our ability to address the housing that is needed for economic reasons, the housing that is needed for moral reasons, the housing that is needed for environmental reasons, and to build the type of community that we want and that we need, and the quality of life that we've come to expect. So I don't think that stasis is an option, and I don't think that it is an appropriate response for us. We have many lawyers that work in county government. I will take their advice. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on Zoom. And so we will stay within the confines of what is legally permissible, but we're also not going to shy away from making changes to zoning, which is part of our role and our job as the local land use authority under state law. And that is something that we expect to move forward on. It's part of our role as we're taking up in the committee today, where we're talking about a master plan. This is what we do and how we do it. Now, there is no legislation before us currently. There are recommendations on policy issues from the planning board. This has been a very methodical approach that I have suggested and that we are now carrying out, which has now gone for approximately 3 years, where we asked the planning department to do significant outreach, to do significant amounts of research, to come back with their recommendations. And we will review them, which we are doing now over the course of 3 sessions. And then ultimately we'll have additional community input and outreach, and we will have legislation that is before us, and there will be a formal process for that legislation as we move forward. So ultimately, lawsuits are not something that I'm thinking about or focused on. Policy is what I'm thinking about and focused on, and a housing crisis that we do have to address. And we have to be serious about the issues that we face. And I'll just note that state law is what gives the county council the authority to do zoning and land use. And the state has made it very clear, and the governor's housing package made it clear, and the General Assembly's response to go more aggressively even than the governor originally proposed, that if local governments don't step up to do their job and to address these issues at the local level, that the state will step in and preempt local governments. I feel strongly that we are equipped at the local level to address these challenges, and we are going to meet the issues that we face and the public policy challenges that we have head on. We're going to do it with significant public engagement and public input. We're going to do it in a way that balances competing interests and needs, and we're going to find a way to move forward. And I think that the approach that we're taking is a prudent one. It's been a thoughtful and methodical one, and it will continue to be that way.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Kate. Up next, reporter Talia Valeras with Univision has a question regarding attainable housing strategies. She will ask the question in English. Council President Friedson will answer in English, and then we'll have my colleague Marcela Rodriguez interpret the answer in Spanish. Talia, to you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the first question would be, what is the problem? What is going on when it comes to attainable housing? ¿Qué es lo que está pasando en el condado en cuanto a las viviendas asequibles?
Well, the problem is there isn't enough housing in Montgomery County, or frankly, in nearly every community across the country for the people who need it. And that's particularly a challenge for our new residents, people who come here looking for opportunities for jobs, for high quality education, and for a great quality of life. There aren't enough places that they can afford to live. And that issue has gotten worse. In fact, there is not a single neighborhood in Montgomery County that is less expensive today and more affordable today than it was 20 years ago. Not a single neighborhood. Every single community is more expensive and less affordable, less attainable, harder to be able to access than it has been any time in the past. That is a problem that is not getting better. In fact, it's getting worse. And the idea of having more housing options in more places and more housing overall is one of the several ways that we are trying to address these issues and make sure that Montgomery County is a place where people can afford to live and to raise a family and to enjoy our quality of life.
Marcela, to you.
Thank you, Jordan. El problema que está sucediendo en estos momentos es que no hay suficientes viviendas, no solamente en el condado de Montgomery, sino a través de todo el país. El problema lo están enfrentando sobre todo los residentes que están recién llegados a este condado, que llegan con nuevas oportunidades laborales y lamentablemente los precios de las viviendas han incrementado a lo largo de todos nuestros vecindarios, nuestras comunidades, y es una problemática que necesita una solución y pensamos que la solución a esta crisis de vivienda es proveyendo diferentes opciones de construcciones de viviendas para que sea más fácil adquirir y lograr este sueño.
Thank you, Marcela. Talia, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. And Marcelita kind of answered it in the last portion, but I'll go ahead and ask the question. So pretty much, ¿qué es lo que están haciendo para abordar esa situación? ¿Cuál es la posible solución a esta situación? And what is the county doing to be able to help with this situation? ¿Qué es lo que están haciendo para abordar esta situación?
Well, with the Attainable Housing Strategies specifically, we're looking at creating more housing options in more places, particularly places that have access to public transportation, to jobs, and to amenities. More broadly, we're also looking at all kinds of other ways that we could increase the amount of housing that we have in Montgomery County and make sure that we're increasing the amount of affordable housing that we can have as well.
Bueno, mediante la iniciativa de estrategias de viviendas asequibles, una iniciativa aprobada por la Junta de Planificación, esto permitiría que los terrenos residenciales en el condado de Montgomery zonificados para viviendas unifamiliares se utilicen para construir viviendas en formatos dúplex, triples o cuádruples. Esto permitiría una opción mucho más diversa para las personas y familias que deseen obtener una vivienda.
Great. Thank you, Talia. Is that all the questions you have today?
I have one more and then I'm done.
Okay, no problem. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Is this causing some Montgomery residents to move to other counties, or the people who are coming here to look in other places? ¿Esto está causando que los residentes busquen vivienda en otros condados?
Well, absolutely. Not having enough housing options makes people want to live and need to live in other places. And when you think about some of our public servants, even who live outside the county, they're largely living outside the county, not because they prefer to live outside the county. They're living outside the county because they can't afford to live in the county. And the idea of having firefighters and police officers and public school teachers and school nurses commuting an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to their jobs is not only not good for them, it's not good for anybody in our community, because it means not only they have less time with their families, but they have less time to do their jobs well. They have a greater level of stress, and they're likely to be less effective than they otherwise would be if they live closer to work.
Great.
Absolutamente que sí es un problema el no tener opciones de vivienda para nuestras familias, nuestros residentes. Esto provoca que muchos opten por irse a vivir a jurisdicciones aledañas debido al alto precio de la vivienda. Lo vemos muchísimo en nuestros maestros, policías, bomberos, que tienen que viajar, pasar mucho tiempo en su carro, lo que significa menos tiempos en familia, mucho estrés, y sí es una problemática.
Great. Thank you, Talia. Thank you, Marcela. Up next, we have Judith Roos with Greater Only News. Good morning, Judith.
Thank you. This is also about the Attainable Housing Strategies. Several years ago, during the discussions for Thrive 2050, there was not a day, I think, that went by for weeks and months that I didn't hear from somebody in the community who was concerned about the housing issues during those discussions. And then again, more recently, with the housing allowed on the land owned by houses of worship as well. What do you say now? They're already rearranging their civic association meetings, holding special meetings, trying to get an understanding of why this won't impact their quality of life. When you say that, we need to have a quality of life for everyone in Montgomery County, what about these people who say, but this is impacting my quality of life? I chose this neighborhood for A, B, and C, and now there's a chance that that could be changed. How do you address those issues?
Well, I appreciate the concern. I will say, I think most people choose their neighborhoods because of who is there, not who is not there. And I'm uncomfortable with the idea that new residents coming into a community is going to negatively impact quality of life.
I'm sorry, President Friedson. I
Sorry.
didn't mean that. I just mean the types of housing. In other words, they've chosen a single family home on a fairly large, lot of land, and now they don't want a duplex or a larger building also in that neighborhood. I don't mean the people. I mean the housing. That's what they're saying. None of them are
Sure.
saying people.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the clarification. So currently right now, a resident can tear down their house. They have the right to tear down their house and build a new structure for one family to height, lot coverage, and setback requirements. What the Attainable Housing Strategy is going to address, and we need to work through the details of it, there's no legislation before us now, would be within the confines of the same type of height, lot line, and setback requirements, whether the structure could house more than one family. That's really what we're talking about. So it really is less the what and more the who. Certainly there could be an extra front door, but otherwise it's not a significant change, most likely, to the actual structures and the size of the structures that are going to be in neighborhoods any differently than the teardowns that you are seeing in communities across Montgomery County, where we're seeing much, much larger houses, actual structures, for actually far fewer people. And the data is pretty overwhelming on this. It's a real concern that has been addressed, where we actually have significantly larger structures today for actually fewer people per household in those homes, which is a challenge. And if you look at many of the places around the country, and actually you don't have to look very far, you can just look just right over the Montgomery County line in places like Chevy Chase, DC, one of the highest quality of life areas, one of the most expensive areas of the region to buy and to own a property. Many of those communities have lots of duplexes in them. And most of the residents, most of the visitors who walk through, drive through, bike through those communities don't think twice about the fact that some of those homes are duplexes that house two families, and some of those are single family houses that house one family. The structures are not necessarily a different size. It's just that the duplexes are smaller. They're basically half the size of what the full single family may have been, or possibly is, right next door or across the street or down the street. So it's a lot of these issues need to be worked out. The devil, of course, is always in the details. That's why we have taken our time. That's why I felt very strongly that this should not be rushed, and it is not being rushed, and why the planning department took almost 3 years to come through with their recommendations that are now being brought up to us over the course of 3 meetings, where these are just briefings. We don't have legislation that is before us. And then ultimately we'll move forward to a legislative proposal where we're going to have to address all of these issues, including the height and setback requirements. And I'll just note in the recommendations, in terms of the look of the structures, the size will mostly be addressed and will be very similar, most likely, to the size of what's allowed if you were to build a single family home. But the pattern, so to speak, will be addressed, is proposed to be addressed at least, through a pattern book, where actually there will be restrictions and requirements that the planning department is suggesting being utilized, where there actually will be more compatibility, so to speak, with individual homes and the aesthetics of the structures, as opposed to what currently exists if you were to tear down and build a new single-family home in a particular neighborhood. So I appreciate the concerns. All of these concerns are legitimate. We have to address them in a thoughtful way, but I don't think any of the concerns are a reason to do nothing. It's a reason to be thoughtful and methodical in how we address the issues in the approach that we take moving forward, which is exactly the approach that we've taken up to this point.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judy. I see Kate Ryan with WTOP has another question. Good afternoon, Kate.
Thank you very much. This is slightly off topic, but related to housing and the costs that we're seeing. Would any of the measures being considered in this new attainable housing policy deal with when LLCs go into areas and buy up a number of homes or even, clusters of development and drive up the prices exponentially? I mean, we've seen that in other areas of the country. Does this address any of that at all? Does it say, hey, if you're going to buy these properties, you have to live there. We don't want to create this churn of ever higher housing properties. Does this address that in any way, and should it?
Well, we're extremely limited on what we can do in terms of restricting ownership. So that is a challenge. There are certain legal parameters that we have to operate within, where we can't be involved in what would be considered legally as property taking, where we say you can't own this property, or you are restricted based on the type of owner that you are in what you are allowed to do with your property. It is a concern, the amount of homes and housing, particularly single-family homes and townhomes that are being purchased by corporate entities. It's something that likely would have to be taken up under state law, that we would be highly restricted under county law. The owner-occupied element is something that we will likely take a look at, but the legal parameters for that are extremely limited in terms of what we can do. And remember, we have to be careful in how we do that, because many homes, particularly of older residents, are actually owned by trusts and estates. And that is part of family planning that individual residents do. And so they're not all owned by individual people, but that doesn't mean that an individual person who's connected to that entity doesn't live there, or owned by a parent, but occupied by a child. But not necessarily in that child's name at that point. For instance, if parents have not passed, but are moving into a different place to age in community, like in a nursing home or assisted living facility, or even a multifamily unit. So these are very complicated issues. Addressing them through zoning is not an area you can do it. We actually, zoning is actually not even an area that you could address the ownership piece. And most of it, in terms of the corporate ownership, corporate entity, that's an area that the state has tried to address. Even they have been limited in what they have been able to do, not just politically in terms of what they can pass, but legally in terms of what they are allowed to do under the confines of state law. So that's an area that, obviously all of us are looking at and monitoring and trying to figure out and grapple with, but is likely not something primarily that we can take up through this initiative.
Gotcha. Last question, I promise. In the housing arena, is there any way in moving forward with this plan? Do you have a model somewhere else that is working?
Well, if you look at what the planning department has put forward, they took models from all over the country and showed best practices. That's part of the briefings that we have had up to this point. We also had a council fellow looking at some of the best practices around the country, specifically looking at some of the affordability standards and ways in which to address those issues. So there isn't an individual jurisdiction that we're saying we want to do it exactly like this jurisdiction or that jurisdiction. It's an effort to look at the best practices that we've seen from around the country, including some in this region, and saying, how can we take the best of what we have seen, make sure that it fits to what the context is in Montgomery County, and move forward with a policy that makes sense and a policy that will address our issues in a way in which we can address concerns that come forward in a thoughtful, methodical way.
Great, thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions from reporters, so I'll go ahead and toss it back to Council President Friedson for closing remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, everybody, for the thoughtful comments and questions, and look forward to your engagement, including today, where we'll have one of our briefings on the Attainable Housing Strategies with one more to follow, and look forward to the continued conversation and discussion. Hope you'll stay tuned for our council session tomorrow. With that, look forward to talking to everybody soon, and thanks for continuing to report on what we're doing here at the County Council. It is more important than ever that we have local coverage, and I just want you to know how grateful I am to be able to ask and answer, I should say, your questions. We need it, and I'm happy to do it, even if the questions can be tough at times. It is a privilege to do it, and something that I'm very grateful for, and I know even more so our residents are.